Hello, in the previous video we drew a sine graph. So in this video we're going to draw a cos graph. And the question might look like sketch y equals 3 cos 3 theta plus pi on 3 for 0 to, let's change the domain to pi, from 0 to pi. And it might ask you to state the amplitude and period. Alright, it's the same story as before, except you start with a different basic shape. So let's do dilation, reflection, translation. We have a dilation by a factor of 3 from the x-axis, and a dilation by a factor of, well, that's going to be a factor of 1/3 from the y-axis. I can't see any negative signs, so we don't have a reflection, but we do have a translation by pi on 3 units, and that's plus pi on 3, so it's going to be pi on 3 units to the left. Let's draw mini graphs. There's y equals cos x. There's one cycle of it from 0 to 2 pi. Now we have a dilation by a factor of 3 from the x-axis. So each of these y values, let's multiply them by 3. So that's going to be from 3 to -3 there, and up to 2 pi. Alright, we also have a dilation by a factor of 1/3 from the y-axis. If you remember from the previous video, that means things are going to get compressed. So we've got 2 pi on 3, well that's going to get multiplied by 1/3 and it's going to get squashed in that way. I'll draw a little arrow. It's going to get squashed in that way. Let's squash it in that way. Like that. So that's going to be 2 pi on 3 there. That's going to be from 3 to -3. Alright, now we're translating pi on 3 units to the left. Well, if that's 2 pi on 3, so that's 2 pi on 3, that must be pi on 3 here. In other words, if that's 2 cups of sugar, that must be 1 cup of sugar in there. That's all I'm saying. It's halfway in between there. So let's translate it pi on 3 units to the left. So it's going to look like that. That's going to be pi on 3. That's going to be -pi on 3, and our amplitude remains the same. Alrighty, so we're going from 0 to 0 to pi. Well, we've got this little section here. In fact, I'm going to draw another mini graph. So that little section is pi on 3, which means that's going to be 2 pi on 3, which means that's going to be 3 pi on 3. Well, 3 pi on 3 is pi. So I've got pi on 3, 2 pi on 3, 3 pi on 3. And that's just fractions there. I mean, if that's pi on 3, that section, at that section, that's 2 pi on 3, that's 3 pi on 3. Well, we've got all the information. Let's sketch this graph. And I'll tell you what, I'm recording this video for the second time because it took me so many tries before in the first take to get this graph right. I was going to do it and then copy and paste it in, but I thought that would be a cop-out. You have to do it live on your exam, so I'm going to do it live in the video. Here's our graph. Alright, let's see here. There we are. Okay, so that's pi there. We're good students. We love to label all our points. Like it needs to bring you joy to label your points. Strictly speaking, that should be theta there, but nobody seems to actually care. I don't know, it's weird. I'm going to put it as theta anyway. It seems to be okay to just leave it as like the x-axis. So you can call it x or theta. Let's label in our points. So we agreed that, well, that's pi on 3, that's 2 pi on 3. I'm just putting these dotted lines in to help us. Well, if that's pi on 3, that occurs halfway in between 0 and pi on 3. So half of pi on 3 is pi on 6. Alright, well, pi on 6 plus pi on 6 is 2 pi on 6. That means that's 3 pi on 6, or pi on 2. That must be 4 pi on 6. That must be 5 pi on 6. And that's 6 pi on 6, or pi. And we're good students, so we put in our amplitude and that endpoint needs to be labelled. We're including pi there, so our endpoint occurs at pi, 3. Alright, the only tricky thing there, I reckon, is if you're not comfortable with fractions, it can be confusing getting those x-intercepts in. But just remember it's like a number line, so if you need extra help with that, ask me, I've got resources for that. Besides that, if you have been, well, firstly, check this on Desmos or check this on your graphics, make sure it's right, and if you have been, thank you for watching.